Hello, everybody, and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Las Vegas. I'm Gabby Sparks, joined by Luis Scott Vargas, and this is round 14. We have Steve Rubin versus Caleb Myers. We've been able to see Caleb a couple times in the feature match today, and we have some deck lists here. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on, Luis?
All right, so Caleb Myers took down his first draft with an aggressive red-green deck, and currently he's winning game one, or he's won his first match with another red-green deck, this time splashing white. He's got Halar the Fire Fletcher again, and just a good combination of aggressive red and green cards. It looks like he plays one way and, in fact, has a Siege Gang Commander. So he's got some good stuff here. The white splash looks like it's for... Looking. Huh, interesting. Well, he's got a Plains in his deck at the very least.
Oh, you can't tell what it is quite yet?
Oh, it's Memorial to Glory.
Huh.
Oh,
to
and
activate
Tiana Ship's Caretaker.
That
there
makes more
we
sense.
go. On the other side of the table, as you can see already, Steve is playing a blue-black deck, and he's got a historic sub-theme here where he's got, you see that Blood Tallow Candle there. He's got 2 copies of Rona, Disciple of Gix, and he's got 2 different legendary spells. He has Yawgmoth's Vile Offering and Karn's Temporal Sundering, so Steve's got some really cool stuff going on.
Yeah, those are some powerful cards. So just to recap real quick what's going on here is that Arcanist was able to bounce before it actually died, and then the Jora's Familiar to follow up for Steve Rubin. Caleb Myers over here with this Warcry Phoenix getting in there. A Blood Tallow Candle also for Steve. Both players at 18.
And Steve's deck looks awesome. He's got 3 Blink of an Eyes. He's playing 2 of his 3 Divinations. That's how good his deck is. He gets to cut a Divination. He's got Skittering Surveyor. He's got a Blood Tallow Candle. Like, he's got a lot of good historic cards, double Rona, a lot of card advantage. I really like what Steve's drafted here.
Bloodstone Goblin and Jousting Lands for Caleb. So his board is progressing.
And Steve deciding whether or not to syncopate, it looks like the Jousting Lance. But with Blink of an Eye in hand, he may want to just let the Lance resolve and start trying to get value by blinking whatever gets equipped with Lance, then syncopating that on the way back down.
It would be kind of a nice tempo play to do that.
The problem is when you commit to that line, you're just saying, I'm not going to try to win anything in combat, because it's really hard for Steve to beat Jousting Lance in combat. So in a long enough game, that might be too problematic.
Oh, wow. So he's copying it with Naru.
Yes, and Naru Meha costs 1 less because of the Jora's Familiar, so Steve is able to cast, unkicked, unfortunately, Blink of an Eye. In response, cast Naru Meha, bounce both of Caleb's creatures, and he's even got Yawgmoth's Vile Offering to follow up on once Caleb plays a creature.
Yeah, that was a super nice follow-up.
Wow, Steve's deck is really good.
He didn't get a chance to draw a card, but who needs it? He basically drew a card by doing that.
Right, he essentially got to cast 2 copies of Blink of an Eye. Is this a Rona?
Yeah, it is a Rona, Disciple of Gix.
And nothing in the graveyard to target with Rona, but this puts 7 power on the board for Steve with a removal spell in hand. And, well, this is going to be a battle, though, because Caleb has a Siege Gang Commander.
How highly do you rate Siege Gang Commander as far as rares go in the set?
It's one of the best cards in the set. It just does so much by itself and has a lot of synergies like with Soul Salvage or Bounce spells, so Siege Gang is truly excellent.
Well, Wizard's Lightning is going to take care of the Rona. Follow up with another Bloodstone Goblin.
Wow. Caleb is very concerned about that Rona. In fact, could have killed Naru Meha, but kills the smaller creature out of respect for the ability of Rona. You're paying 4 to exile the top card of your library, and then starting to cast cards off of that.
So this Pardic Wonder made a little bit cheaper thanks to that Jora's Familiar.
And that was a really good draw for Steve, because with Yawgmoth's Vile Offering in hand, he really just wants to continue pressuring Caleb Myers, getting more on the board, making it so it's even stronger to kill Caleb's best creature.
So what is Caleb's best creature right now?
If he plays Siege Gang, it's going to be the Siege Gang. Probably whatever he plays, just because that Bloodstone Goblin is not the most impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Though
this does not give very many targets for Yawgmoth's Vile Offering.
Yeah, Sapling Migration, just dumping a bunch of tokens on the board, makes the Vile Offering less appealing.
Mm-hmm. We're going to get some Saproling tokens momentarily.
And Bloodstone Goblin could have gotten in with Menace there, but I think Caleb wants to leave it back to block with.
I mean, he has that 8 life. He is a little bit concerned about his life total.
Steve hitting that 6 land, so now you can play a land and activate Bloodstone Candle. Could also, if you wanted to, pre-combat Vile Offering, but I feel like there's a good chance Steve can just turn things sideways and then keep the candle up as a trick. Maybe you don't attack with Narumeha. But the Partic Wanderer can't be killed in combat because if Caleb blocks with everything, Bloodstone Candle or Blood Tallow Candle takes away the Goblin, and Steve ends up having his Partic Wanderer survive the combat.
Feels like Partic Wanderer is a little expensive for what it does, but it is really nice that it has Trample.
It's the kind of card you only play in 2 situations. One is if you're just short on playables and you need something with power and toughness. And the other, in this case, is if you have a lot of synergies that care about historic cards. And Steve is, luckily for him, in the second camp.
Mm-hmm. So, let's see what Crunch is in. Oh, he's doing something pre-combat. Vile Offering, targeting the Goblin, bringing back Rona. And now the creatures are getting in, so that includes Narumeha.
So Steve is willing to accept the trade here. Caleb can triple block Narumeha, take 7, fall to 1, and then Steve just has still 3 creatures in play, including a 5/5 Trampler.
Yeah, he's just so far ahead. Now Caleb doesn't only have to deal with that. There's also the candle still waiting there. All right, and that's going to do it. Steve Rubin takes game 1. So let's move on to game 2.
Caleb deciding whether to side in Broken Bond. We saw a fair amount of good targets, so I'd imagine that one is coming in. It's got to feel so good when you're Steve. You're right. You're 11-1 going into the second draft.
And then your deck looks busted like this.
Exactly. You're hoping for a great draft, then just you get one of the 10 out of 10 would draft again decks.
It looks extremely powerful. Let me take a look at the deck list. Is this him? Yeah. Yeah, this deck looks nice. Yeah, triple Blink of an Eye.
And Caleb's deck is not bad. He has Multani Yavamaya's Avatar, the best card in the format. He's got...
It's so bad against Blink of an Eye, though.
It is. Blink of an Eye is a good way to take advantage of that. He's got Song of Freyalise. I'd be very happy if I were Caleb as well. Siege Gang Commander. These players are just firing on all cylinders. The drafts went very well for both of these players.
So as it turns out, Steve Rubin is not actually playing all 3 divinations. He has 3. He did draft 3, but he's only playing 2. Still so many, though. It's awesome. Well, there's divination number 1.
And you notice that Steve fired off Blink of an Eye without Kicker on turn 2. The reason to do that is if you cast Divination on the draw, you actually have to discard if you haven't played anything until then. So by casting that Blink of an Eye, Steve ended up avoiding discarding. It's almost like he got the benefit of kicking Blink of an Eye.
Halar Fire Fletcher coming down for Caleb. And nothing currently for Steve. Let's see if there's any Trixies. Halar gets in. Let's drop Steve down to 17. Bloodstone Goblin is a follow-up.
Caleb could have gone for a more ambitious play here of casting Song of Freyalise, then casting that Bloodstone Goblin off of the Halara tapping for mana, but he did go the conservative line.
It does feel kind of bad to play that Song of Freyalise when you don't have much of a board.
It does, but it can help you develop a board, and Caleb's currently
That's
stuck
true.
on mana with Multani in hand.
Rona, Disciple of Gix, hitting the board. And then we're going to see a pass back to Caleb. Well, there's the song this time. So we're in chapter 1.
So
Does Caleb had anything to do with 3 mana then?
he might just be casting it and hoping to draw a land next turn and play Multani.
Yeah, he has the Multani in hand. Yep, the Halar's just getting in there. Steve Rubin down to 14. Gitu Chronicler is going to get syncopated.
Oh, wow, and Caleb got very punished for that sequencing. Had he cast Gitu Chronicler before attacking, Steve would not be able to syncopate because Song of Freyalise would let Halar the Fire Fletcher tap for mana. As things went, Steve got to syncopate that Gitu Chronicler.
It was almost like a Stone Rain because now he can't actually use that creature for mana next turn too.
Right, and Caleb would be able to cast Multani off that Chronicler this turn, though if he draws a land, he'll still be able to cast it.
Which he didn't.
Wow, that could really turn the tide of this game.
Oof. All right, so let's see what he chooses to do with his turn instead. It's the Phoenix once more, and it does have haste. Warcry Phoenix gets in, and using one more mana to Shivan Fire away that Rona.
This still leaves Caleb in a somewhat precarious position because he's got a 6-mana card in his hand, Multani, which he can't cast, and he's facing down a 5/5 Trampler, alongside having a Blood Tallow Candle, which he can't activate either. The plus side, Song is about to go to its final chapter, which will make the Warcry Phoenix and Halar large, indestructible, vigilant, all of those things.
How about a backup Rona? Exiling Rona.
Rona exiling Rona is not the most useful in the world because, of course she has legendary, but it still does get you, a decent bit of value.
All right, so the Song reaches chapter number 3, giving everything counters. Vigilance and Trample make this nice, but Bardic Wanderer is pretty large. It can still block.
Yeah, and it's free for Caleb to attack. Indestructible and Vigilance mean that there's no drawback, but yeah, Steve is just going to block and not really worry about what might happen.
Mm-hmm. And it does seem like Caleb's hand did not develop very well for lack of mana, actually, that he could not really use the benefit for after Song of Freyalise.
Yeah, and once again, if that Multani were in play, we'd have a very different game here.
Oh yeah, Multani with Song of Freyalise is pretty nice.
Oh yes. Wow.
Karn's Temporal Sundering? Bounce the Fire Fletcher. Take an extra turn attack?
So Steve is offering the trade of Bardic Wanderer for either of Caleb's creatures if Caleb double blocks, but if Steve has one of his 3 blinks of an eye, he's already used 1, but he has 2 left, and Caleb double blocks, it's disastrous for Caleb. On the other hand, if Caleb takes it, he knows Steve's taking an extra turn, so he might get attacked again the next turn. You're almost committing to taking 2 hits if Steve decides to attack again.
Yes, I think in the face of that, Caleb seems to want to double block, and he is going to fire that off. Steve's ordering the Baloth first, the Warcry Phoenix second. Oh, actually, other way around. So the Phoenix first, Baloth Gorger second.
Well, from Caleb's perspective, that's the best he could have done. I mean, Steve didn't have a blink of an eye, so it's not the end of the world. Steve's actually, got a few problems here.
But this was kind of nice. Remember that exiled Rona to the Rona actually let Steve
exactly
recast the Rona, recast Bardic Wanderer, because Steve, I believe, only has 2 lands in hand. So he's definitely running out of gas, but Rona keeps the cards flowing.
Steve needs to draw something. He doesn't know this, but Caleb has Multani in hand. Steve's time is limited. Once Multani hits the board, Steve's going to have a really hard time winning. And even from Steve's perspective, there's a Blood Tallow Candle. Caleb's on 5 mana. If Caleb hits a land, candles down the Bardic Wanderer and starts attacking with Baloth and Halar, Steve's going to die really quickly to that, too. We've got an update from chat. It looks like the top 4 of the beta draft qualifier, the final one, vying for the final seat in the beta draft, includes both Mike Sigrist and Mark Herberholtz.
Ooh.
Herberholtz actually beat Owen Turtenwald in the top 8.
There were so many pros that were undefeated in the... I know Owen Turtenwald and Huey.
Owen actually beat William Jensen in the last round to make it to the top 8.
Yeah. That is pretty unfortunate to get paired up in that. Though only one can win.
If Mike Sigrist qualifies, it will mean that all members of Team Channel Fireball in attendance will have qualified. Rona going to work here.
Yeah, and that's an Abandine of Iteration.
Though looking at Steve's deck, doesn't look like he'll take advantage of Naban's ability. He doesn't have wizards that trigger, but he does have a number of legendary spells, so that helps in that regard. Though with Rona in play, you don't need it as much.
Look at this, Luis. A Grow from the Ashes is going to help Caleb get to that Multani.
And it's going to put a counter on Halar the Fire Fletcher, so... Or maybe not.
Oh, blink of an eye to blink the Fire Fletcher. Steve gets to draw a card from that too.
So by blinking in response, Halar will not get the counter and won't do a 1 point of damage from Steve. Had Halar already had 1 counter on it, then it would have done 1 damage to Steve because it still uses last known information, but the last time we looked, Halar had no counters.
And there's the Plains from Caleb. That does unlock his splash color.
Yeah, for Tiana Ship's Caretaker. Relatively free splash given the Skittering Surveyor and the Grow from the Ashes. And the Song of Freylays, actually.
All right, so Blood Tallow Candle, and this doesn't happen often, but being able to cast it and activate it in the same turn makes it a pretty effective removal spell.
Yeah, and now, because Steve gets to slam for 9 here, even though Caleb plays Multani, he's very close to losing. Steve has another way to get that Multani on the board, you know, Yawgmoth's Vile Offering and his last blink of an eye. Steve will just straight up win, and even if he doesn't, Caleb may not be in a position to really fully utilize Multani, though Multani is big enough that Caleb still may be able to attack and then play some other blockers.
Yeah, so here comes down Multani Yavimaya Avatar. And a short sword for it.
I feel like Multani wouldn't use a short sword.
Nah, you can clearly see that it has some sort of like Nissa staff scepter thing going on. Swords I don't think befit the Yavimaya Avatar.
The full majesty of Multani.
Yeah.
So if Steve doesn't draw something that will immediately impact the board, and allow him to attack for the win, his incentive is to use Rona right away just to get more information to see what does she exile. If she exiles something good, you want to be able to play that before playing what's in your hand.
Yeah, what's in Steve's hand is a Skittering Surveyor.
Yeah, I can definitely see a Skittering Surveyor. Not actually sure what the last card is there.
Yeah. So Rona activation, see what's flipped. Ooh.
Wow, Steve has a Tempest Djinn also?
Tempest Djinn is nice. How many islands does he have?
Steve has 7 islands in play.
6, 7?
Yavimaya does, or Multani does in fact have reach. The card does everything. Still, Steve's deck is one of the best decks I've seen.
Yeah, I'm really loving Steve's deck. Yavimaya's, it just has every...
Oh, Steve has a Deep Freeze. He actually has an answer for Multani here, because once you Deep Freeze Multani, it will just be an 0-4.
Yeah, so the text on Multani Yavimaya's Avatar gets +1/+1 for each land you control and each land card in your graveyard. And then for 2, you return 2 lands, you return Multani from the graveyard to your hand. So this Deep Freeze does deal with it pretty cleanly.
This is one of the few effective answers, and now Steve is just going to run away with the game. Caleb is dead to Tempest Djinn, dead to Partick Wander, and even if deals with both those, still has two ground creatures ready to attack. Wow. Somehow the Siege Gang Multani deck was not the best, and Song of Freylays was not the best deck in the match. I do think Steve's deck is more powerful. It just has everything you want in a blue-black deck.
Somehow I wasn't the best deck in the pod. Usually you do pretty well when you have Multani, but you can get run over for sure. Caleb definitely had some stuff earlier in the game that didn't work out so hot for him, because Multani never really was able to impact this board, whereas if he had it a bit earlier, it might have made a difference.
Wow, and
yeah,
Caleb was very close to winning. He has killed an Overseer in hand.
Oh boy!
If he could have stolen Tempest Djinn and attacked for lethal, he would have. Except once you steal the Tempest Djinn, it becomes a 0-4 on your side of the board. So if it was as big on Caleb's side as it was on Steve's, Caleb actually would have won.
Not the best Keldon Overseer, that's for sure. So Steve Rubin moves on to 13-1.
And we're thinking he'll either be able to draw in the last round or potentially lose into top 8. We'll see what the final standings look like. But if I were Steve, I wouldn't be worried.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Myers gets another chance after this.
Caleb does, and Caleb's
sure.
deck is quite good. So now that he's 12-2, he can play to try to hit 13-2. But if I'm Steve and 13-1, I'm thinking like, yeah, I could probably just play and win my last round.
Yeah. I mean, it just benefits him, right? Hello, welcome back to the booth. Steve Rubin's deck is so great. What would you rate it?
This is a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
It's not particularly close. No, it just has all the tools you need to win the game and is consistent because it has a bunch of blink of an eyes and divinations.
Yeah.
So even if it has a bad draw, you can still just be like divination, kick a blink, and get to the point where you're able to leverage your really powerful spells.
This isn't like the decks that I've seen you play sometimes where you're splashing Tempest Djinn, by the
Excuse
way,
me?
where I've seen those decks you play sometimes. It's like Sultai splashing Tempest Djinn. And, I mean, Tempest Djinn still looks amazing in the deck, but you do need to be able to cast it first.
I have important papers to shuffle.
Is it Modern Deck List?
Not this time. So we're going to have more Magic for you, I believe, and it's going to be interesting to see what record you end up needing to make top 8 and who's in a position to hit that record.
Yeah, I don't think we have exact numbers for how many players joined the Limited Grand Prix, but maybe we can find out and get you answers. But before, we have these messages. booth. I'm Gabby Sparks, joined by Luis Scott Vargas, and we're still watching more drafts here.
Oh, yeah.
Round 14 at Grand Prix Las Vegas. Let's head down to the match. So we're going to be taking a look at Daniel Broilett versus Michael Burnett, and both players currently at 12-1. Presumably, both players playing for top 8 in this round.
And kind of in the theme of what we've seen so far in this round, Michael Burnett has a very good deck. Just it turned out the card quality in this draft was very high. And here, we see Michael Burnett on this blue-white legendary deck with 2 copies of Raf Capuchin. And, a Sentinel of the Pearl Trident, in Bolus's clutches, 2 Blink of an Eyes. There are a lot of Blink of an Eyes going on.
So Michael Burnett is curving out. That's a very good start for him. On the other side, we have Broilett with the Llanowar Envoy.
And Daniel Broilett's got a black-green deck, splashing a little bit of red with double Woodland Cemetery to help with the mana fixing. So that's some pretty good mana. Splashing for Fight with Fire. That's a pretty good card to be splashing.
You're missing some sweet action. Take a look at this. On
Wow.
Sarah's Wings on the Benalish Honor Guard. And now it's legendary, so I guess it pumps itself, right?
That is some extra technology. So now it's a 4/3 flying lifelink, Vigilance. And that plus Academy Drake means that Daniel Broilett's going to be dead in short order if he can't answer those.
What do you think about the aggressive putting of On Sarah's Wings on this? It's not usually, Benalish Honor Guard is not usually the #1 target for it.
No, but I do like it, especially if Burnett does not have another good 4-drop to play. You basically put the question to Daniel, do you have an answer for this? And if the answer is no, then he loses the game on the spot. Like, this is 2 more hits. Daniel is now at 6 to Michael Burnett's 25.
So 5 mana for the Cloud Reader Sphinx.
And look how this is played out. Even if Daniel now untaps and peels a removal spell and kills that Benalish Honor Guard, he's dead in the air to the Cloud Reader Sphinx plus the Academy Drake. And Michael Burnett's got so much life because of that lifelink that he's not particularly worried about racing against Thallid Omnivore and Llanowar Envoy.
So Thallid Omnivore getting in there.
Burnett's just not interested in blocking.
This is just a nightmare of a creature to block,
Yeah, he's got the life points to just take the damage.
Not having to tap out in this turn also allows him to play Windgrace Acolyte.
And that will offer the trade for the Benalish Honor Guard. Though if Burnett has an answer here, then the game
It looks like he's very confidently tapping, and that looks like a blink of an eye. Yup. No more Windgrace Acolyte. And that clears the way, and Michael Burnett takes a very quick game 1. All right, so do these players have much in the form of a sideboard?
Looking for Pierce the Skies, and, well, Daniel Broilett has one. It's 100% in his deck right now. There's no way it's not. And past that, he's also got a Broken Bond, which is generally good against blue-white, and especially when you saw On Sarah's Wings, is certainly worthy of consideration.
So Divest on turn 1, the card that we were discussing earlier, not sure exactly where we land on it in the format, but it is taking care of that Pegasus Courser, which is a nice snipe.
Yeah, that works out. Divest in your opening hand is good. If you knew you were going to draw that card in your opening hand, you'd almost always just want it in your deck. The downside to Divest is when you draw it on turn 7, your opponent has no cards in their hand.
Yeah.
Michael Burnett with a tricky opt here. He's deciding whether he wants to keep this card or not.
How do you like Opt in the draft format?
I like it more than the last time we saw it. We saw it in Ixalan, and I thought Ixalan was a little too fast for Opt. This format's slow enough that having a card where you're spending a mana to increase your card selection over the course of the game is generally worth it. So I find room for Opt in basically all of my blue decks.
Fair enough. So Plains for Burnett. Nothing else. All right, so let's see what turn 3 is. A Deathbloom Thallid. Now we're going to see a pass back to Michael. Just another land and go.
And it looks like Burnett did not keep a very fast hand, and once the Pegasus Courser got divested, just has no plays for the first couple turns.
Wow, so Daniel is missing a land drop after that turn.
It's kind of the classic battle of does someone stuck on 3 lands who can deploy some cheap creatures beat the person who has plenty of lands but doesn't have any early action? And if Michael's passing again, we are going to see that play out.
How do you like Crozen Druid, especially when you're not kicking it?
When you're not kicking it, it's not particularly impressive, but every now and then you play it turn 3 on a pinch. I do like it in matchups like this because it's one of the cards that can really swing a race. When you're playing against blue-white flyers and you play a Crozen Druid on 4, it's really powerful.
Yeah, it does feel like they're very tempo-based, so if you randomly just gain 10 life, that's a big game.
So what you notice here is that Crozen Druid didn't attack into Michael Burnett's 4 open mana. That's out of respect for the fact that Michael Burnett has 2 copies of Wrath Capation. And Daniel Brulette is aware of that and chose not to attack with a 2/3, even though it doesn't look like Burnett necessarily had that. But these players know what's in each other's decks. They have some knowledge of that, and as a result, we see that 2/3 stay back out of the fear of the 4 open mana.
So 5 mana here for... Okay, so for an Academy Journey Mage, 2 bounds the Thallid.
And Burnett has been able to keep his life total quite high here. He's still at 17 despite not playing anything until turn 4. And the Academy Journey Mage and Blinkam and I do a very good job of that.
It does look like Daniel drew a land for the turn, so that's going to allow him to play a kicked Untamed Kavu. We will be replacing that counter shortly. Does not have 3 -1/-1 counters.
And remember, Burnett does have In Bolas's Clutches in his deck, so if he can slam that on turn 6, it would be one of the kinds of cards that would...
Oh, this looks like 6 mana, and it is exactly In Bolas's Clutches. Good call, Luis.
Well, there's just not that many cards you could have in your hand when you're just passing with, 3 mana, 4 mana, not really doing a whole lot. But having Clutches is critical here.
I mean, it's pretty clutch here.
That it certainly is. Burnett giving some thought to not attacking with Journey Mage, and the reason he'd do that is if Daniel then plays like a Broken Bond on that Clutches, he would rather trade the 3/2 for the attack in Crozen Druid, but he concluded that he'd rather just get the guaranteed 3 in and doesn't think it's that likely that Clutches is going to leave the battlefield.
Primordial Worm hitting the board, making its best Colossal Dreadmaw impression.
Yeah, I don't know when the next time we're going to see Colossal Dreadmaw is besides every set. But Primordial Worm does some work here. It will keep the Untamed Kavu back if Burnett doesn't have an answer. Burnett would love to be able to just remove the worm, like have another blink of an eye. He does have 2 in his deck and just attack for a bunch. But if he doesn't have that, we might be in a bit of a board stall, which still generally does favor the blue-white Flyers deck because there's more ways to fly over. But yeah, Daniel's got a Urgros, the empty one, in his hand, so he might be able to start getting some value off of that.
All right, so Knight of Grace hits the board. Looking a little small against that Primordial Worm.
Yeah, Knight of Grace is an excellent card. And, you would certainly take Knight of Grace over Primordial Worm if you saw them in a pack, but once you get to the point where they're both on the field, yeah, the Worm is better.
And Daniel's utilizing all his mana these turns. Urgros hits the board for him, and now he has a really good threat.
Burnett here with Sentinel of the Pearl Trident. He could actually do something like end of Daniel's second main phase, cast Sentinels of the Pearl Trident, target his own Bolas's Clutches. It comes back end of turn. He chooses to enchant Urgros, and then he gets an attack with Urgros. Though he is going to have a little bit more problem stabilizing the ground, that is a really nice value play.
Yeah, and I think that's what he might be going for. So, yeah, it's targeting In Bolas's Clutches. Which means Daniel gets back the Kavu.
And this would be the end of Daniel's second main phase once again, so that the Sentinel's delayed trigger happens at the end of this turn.
Sentinel of the Pearl Trident is a pretty cool card. It has so many good synergies, especially when you're using Sagas too.
Yeah, it has a really high upside though. It it's the kind of card that goes from being mediocre to unplayable to one of the best cards in your deck, depending on the rest of the contents
Right.
of your deck.
A Divination to get 2 more looks.
And now Michael Bernat is in very good shape. He does need to account for the fact that Daniel has a 5/5 trample and a 7/6, but he's gaining an advantage by hitting with that Urgoros, and that's a significant one. A card at random every turn is going to run Daniel out of cards very quickly.
How many cards does Daniel have in hand? Like 3? Yeah. So that's the first card. And it was a Deathbloom Thallid. That could have been worse. Let's see what else was left in there.
And it looks like Bernat has no follow-up here.
Daniel's drawn a land for the turn. So Primordial Worm and Kavu getting in, crunching in.
So what are Michael's best blocks here? He can put 2 3-power creatures on a Primordial Worm and just take a hit for 5. He could also stack 3 creatures potentially, but that does run into some combat tricks poorly.
Are you worried about pump spells or removal spells here?
I think you by taking the Urgoros, you've kind of committed to making these blocks. You don't really have the luxury of playing around pump spells.
All right, so Daniel with a follow-up of kicked Caligo Skinwitch. Michael's going to respond with a kicked Blink of an Eye.
Oh, and Michael's definitely not scared of pump spells if
Yeah.
he had a Blink of an Eye, which notice he used. He waited to use on it, so he took extra damage in order to keep that
Yeah, that was
optionality
very
up.
patient. And he just discarded 2 cards he didn't care very much about. A land, just a Plains, and a Benalish Honor Guard.
And Bernat's been rewarded for that. Now the board is very much in his favor. He gets to hit with Urgoros, and he might be able to take out that Untamed Kavu.
This is going to be the first card. Spore Swarm. That seems like a good get. Kicked Academy Drake too, so he's presenting a lot of power in the air.
Yeah, this Untamed Kavu is not going to be fast enough. Daniel can tap out for Untamed Kavu, can't attack into Knight of Grace or Academy Drake. Pass the turn. Bernat hits for 8, putting Daniel to 1, and then isn't going to die to Untamed Kavu the next turn. I think that the key turning point of the game was when Sentinel of the Pearl Trident reset the In Bolus's clutches and took Urgoros.
Well, it was really nice that, usually with these kinds of cards, you are deciding when you want to commit to it, right? It's one of your best cards for sure. So you want to make sure you get one of their best cards too. But if you have a way to reset it, that's just value.
Right. You get to take the Kavu when it's the best creature on the board, and then later you draw Sentinel and they play a better creature, and you take that one instead. And that'll do it.
Yeah, Michael Bernat takes the match. Improves to 13-1 over here at Grand Prix Las Vegas. That was awesome. Congratulations to him. He is almost, we think he's in the top 8, not 100% sure, but we will be bringing you updates on that.
Yeah, the caveat is we think this is the record, but we're not guaranteeing it. And in fact, if you assume that we could at any point be wrong, then that's probably the safest assumption.
I think the thing about this also is it's a really large Grand Prix, so weird things can happen with tiebreakers when you have a Grand Prix of the size. You had that experience a couple of Grand Prix Las Vegas ago. It is just something that happens in large tournaments,
yeah.
But either way, he's very well set up to go into the next round to either play or potentially draw into the top 8. So congrats to him. All right, so we have more Magic coming your way. Let's head down to the match. This is going to be Austin Mori versus Trevor Gower.
Oh, and this is a pair down. This is when you have players of differing records in a pod, and we see Austin's here at 12-1 playing against an 11-2.
So, classic Knight of New Benalia versus Gitu Chronicler.
Hey, Gitu Chronicler has
a match of the ages.
Has a 2-drop mode, and it worked out pretty well there.
Austin with a follow-up Mesa Unicorn, no land. Well, we're seeing mono 2-drops control over here, but Austin is missing land drops. Nope, not anymore. And not declining the trade against the Bloodstone Goblin.
Yeah, the Jousting Lance that Austin played that turn means that he just wants to keep the Mesa Unicorn back, and then next turn he can lance it up and start draining for 4, hitting for 4 points of lifelink damage a turn.
Yeah, Mesa Unicorn is good at racing. especially good when it holds a lance, so I guess this one will not be.
A second lance. It is a unicorn after all.
That's true. I'm not exactly sure how this unicorn would wield a lance, but we probably shouldn't be asking these questions.
I see another rat colony in Austin's hand. These white-black aggressive decks just want 2-drops, and sometimes those 2-drops are rat colonies.
Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do. Bloodstone Goblin getting in there. 5 mana for the Mending of Dominaria.
Oh, that's a particularly nice one with Gitu Chronicler ready to go.
Yeah, and there's more Chroniclers hitting the bin also.
Austin is very far behind here. Mending is ticking up and giving Trevor a lot of options, especially as it mills cards into his graveyard that he can maybe, if he draws another mountain, kick the Chronicler he just got back and just get back that barrage. But on the other hand, Austin's got a rat colony.
You're never going to give the rats a break, huh?
Oh, no.
The Mending of Dominaria reaches Chapter 2.
I do think the rat colony is actually fine. Like, if you need a 2-drop,
Is it fine,
it is
though? Is
serviceable.
it fine?
No, so in all seriousness, rat colony is good if you need a 2-drop. It's not good if you're trying to combine 5 of them. Like, it is a perfectly acceptable way to spend 2 mana in an aggressive deck with Jousting Lance and Pegasus Courser. It's not a card I would base my deck around.
Look at this rat colony traded with a Bloodstone Goblin. What more could you expect of it?
No, that's above expectation.
All right, so Benalish Honor Guard is wielding the lance and getting in there. How much are you liking the Rampaging Cyclops in the format?
It's a fine card. It's not a card I'm excited about, but it is a fine card. And here we see Austin pointing out that Trevor did actually fail to increase his Mending of Dominaria lore count. And
well, he did draw.
He drew, but he went to play a land. But that is, at this point, easily fixable because there is enough time to put those forests into play and reshuffle the rest of Trevor's graveyard.
All right, so the Mending of Dominaria bringing back all land cards to the battlefield, and then he gets to shuffle the graveyard into the library. Was there anything of value in the graveyard?
There was a Goblin Barrage, so Trevor actually would prefer not to shuffle in his graveyard because he has Gitu Chronicler in hand, but he'll still take those 2 forests.
Taking a look at the Chronicler.
Yeah,
kind of unfortunate that it went away. You're right. I mean, getting all the lands is valuable, though. He is working off of 1 mountain.
Yeah, he currently couldn't even kick the Chronicler if he wanted to. Though those forests shouldn't be tapped. Guess it doesn't matter at this point. But Austin did finally draw his second swamp, so it looked like a Josu Vest in hand. He might be able to.
Ooh, that's a nice one to kick. He also has a Call the Cavalry, I think. Benalish Honor Guard getting in there.
Oh, that is not a Josu Vest, unfortunately for him, but maybe it's the Call the Cavalry he was thinking about playing.
Yeah, so here's the Cavalry.
Trevor's offense is somewhat kind of faltering. If he doesn't have a trick, then this Rampaging Cyclops can get double blocked. But one of the cool things about Rampaging Cyclops is it kind of entices your opponent to double block, and then your trick gets really good.
Yeah, that's true.
And in fact, Trevor has a Sheevan Fire in hand, so if those 2 knights step in front of Cyclops, it will become a 2/4, and there's 2 2/2s, but then Sheevan Fire kills a knight, and Cyclops kills the other knight.
I will say that it is very tempting to double block a Rampaging Cyclops. Like, it feels good when it works out. It feels awesome. It looks like Austin is just opting to jump in front of that Keldon Warcaller and letting the Rampaging Cyclops get through. So he'll be taking 4. Sap Migration for Trevor.
Wow, and that's going to be a really big finish here.
That's a big game.
We've got 4 saplings when Austin's at 8 life, and between those and the Sheevan Fire, Trevor's going to do a pretty good job of stabilizing. Or, in fact, just being on the aggressive. That card's not Josu Vest in Austin's hand. That's the second rat colony. We have identified it.
Classic red colonies. All this is making me want to do is try to go for a full-on red colony deck, you know?
Oh, you're more than welcome to do that.
I probably would.
Like.
I swore off after the first time I did it. It just did not come close to getting there. And I had like 5. So we're going to see a big trade of Saproings against that knight.
And Austin choosing not to attack with his Benalish Honor Guard, potentially leaving it back to block the Rampaging Cyclops. But that's not going to work out quite so well because Trevor does have Sheevan Fire in hand. Oh, that is a Stronghold Confessor. See, foils throw me off. I'm pretty good at identifying cards in hand, but foils, wow, those always make it tricky. Oh,
yeah,
that's a fight with fire.
It's the foils and the promo cards that get you.
Trevor now paying the price for having 7 forests in play. He's I
can't even kick the fight with fire.
Drawn a somewhat unlucky mix here, but I think he's going to be all right.
Okay, so Sheevan Fire takes care of the first thing. Rampaging Cyclops can get in. No profitable blocks for Austin anymore. So he's just going to have to take 4.
And Austin in a pretty tough spot here. His best play, might just be equipping the Jousting Lance, but then he is going to lose straight up to the unkicked fight with fire. Of course, he can't win if Trevor draws a mountain and just casts kick to a fight with fire. And if Trevor's drawing spells, Austin's still in trouble. So this would be a pretty tough game for Austin to come out with.
What would he need to actually try to get out of this? Trevor get really mana screwed and then...
Well, the thing is he can't even beat a mountain. So he would need Trevor to just continue drawing forests and Austin to draw, a good spell pretty much every turn.
How many forests does Trevor have in his deck?
Well,
I think most of them are out there.
I would assume most of them are out there, so I think he may have 1 or 2 at most. Here we go.
There's 8 on the board right now.
And he has 9 total.
That's almost all of them. Memorial to Folly. Let's see. Oh, getting back the Mesa Unicorn. And a land to deploy it.
And this will allow the double block, except for the fact that Trevor does have that fight with fire.
Yeah, and he's not even going to wait for the mountain. Just fire it off. Attack with everyone.
Yep, this is
forcing a chump block.
Just going to knock Austin at 2, and then...
Oh, and he even has a Mammoth Spider to top it off? Yeah, and that's going to do it. Trevor Goer takes the first game here at GP Las Vegas. All right, so does either player get anything particularly sweet from sideboards?
Well, taking a quick scope here, does not look like there's going to be a whole lot of shifts. There's a Broken Bond from Trevor, since playing as Black-White with the Jousting Lance, pretty decent chance you might want to do that. And then Austin is not likely to change a whole lot out of what he has submitted. In fact, he's playing almost every black and white card that is in his pool.
Austin is off to a pretty quick start. He does have that Benalish Honor Guard. We're going to see a trade. And he has one to follow up again.
And Crozendruin looking pretty good there, because it actually is keeping that other Benalish Honor Guard back.
Raven Sentry can start getting in through the skies, though. We do know that Trevor has a Mammoth Spider somewhere in there, but cannot deploy it quite yet. Llanowar Envoy to follow up. Yeah, and the Sentry starts getting in there.
Attention players in 430 seal. Your
Stronghold Confessor that's kicked.
Players for 430 seal your barracks for
Oh, well, there's a Mammoth Spider, so this will stop the Aven Sentry.
Yeah, under the current conditions...
oh, but there's an Eviscerate. He just drew it this turn, so Mammoth Spider is dead. An attack with an Aven Sentry. Well, it was attacking even before any of this happened.
Yeah, Austin never untapped his Aven Sentry and kind of didn't need to. Choosing not to attack with that Stronghold Confessor because Menace is great, except Trevor would just double block it and you'd end up trading a 3/3 Menace down for one of Trevor's 2 creatures, both of which are worse.
Yeah, that would be a pretty bad trade down. Though this Sheevan Fire is going to finally stop the reign of the Aven Sentry.
And I like Trevor's play here of doing it main phase. People way too often end up waiting on removal, and imagine if Trevor waited and Austin had like an Adamant Will or something
Yeah,
like
which
that.
he literally has.
Yep, that is one of the cards in his deck.
All right, now he's offering the double block, but this Gideon's Reproach is going to keep the Stronghold Confessor alive. So that was a nice 2-for-1 for Austin.
That was a nice, clean 2-for-1.
Yeah.
Menace really coming into play there. I think Trevor just has all lands. Let's see what his... except for his...
There's something. Okay, Saproling Migration is not too shabby.
All right, so now that Trevor has the 4/1/1s, he can put 3 on the Confessor, 1 on the Rat Colony. This does leave Austin slightly far ahead, especially with Memorial and the first draw step. But I don't think Austin can do a whole lot about that. I think he's just going to, start pushing creatures into the red zone here.
Right, Colony really shining here against all these Saprolings.
Yeah, that is not exactly where you want to be.
Well, it looks like all of the Saprolings jumped in from the Stronghold Confessor, which is going to force that trade. The Benalish Honor Guard does get through.
And now Austin's got that Memorial to Folly, and he's going to be able to buy back either the Confessor or Aven Sentry, though Aven Sentry's looking a bit better, especially since that Mammoth Spider's already dead.
Does he have any other ones?
Trevor does not. He only has 1 Mammoth Spider. But he does have a Mending of Dominaria. If he can draw that, that'll get it back.
Halar Fire Fletcher is the follow-up.
And that will lock up the ground, but make it even more tempting to get back that Aven Sentry. Whoa, Austin almost untapped there, but did a very good job of catching himself, because getting that Aven Sentry back is important.
Oh yeah,
here.
that is very important, especially with Trevor being at 12.
Yeah, 4 quick turns, that could be it.
He is kind of flooding, so good thing he remembered. Aven Sentry is the play, no other attacks.
Yeah, both players on a good amount of lands. Wow, Ancient Animus was an incredible draw here.
Oh, it's so nice with Fire Fletcher too.
Being able to take down that Aven Sentry and end up with a 4/4 Halara, though, would avoid attacking this turn, especially since it has 3 damage on it.
Another Stronghold Confessor. This is a foil one.
Yeah, Austin has a lot of creatures which you're not thrilled to play, but at least he keeps drawing a lot of them and is going to continue trying to pressure Trevor.
He's making them work. Oh, a Jousting Lance. That's really nice on.
Oh wow.
On the Confessor too.
Yeah, that's gonna work out very well for Austin now. He's just a draw step or 2 from equalizing this match.
Yeah, and Trevor kind of forced to just take it here. The fact that it has Menace is really nice. Wow, just land and pass.
Trevor needs to draw a Fight with Fire. If he can draw a Fight with Fire, he'll go from losing this game to winning it really quickly.
All right, we're already dubbing the knight. I guess it was already a knight, but now it's really ready to fight.
So Trevor's best option here is to chump the knight and then take 5 from the Confessor.
Things are looking so bad for Trevor. Any Fight with Fires? Nope. All lands.
Look at all these lands ahead. Throws
still
them on
had
the table.
all these lands. Yeah, Trevor drew like 11 lands. That was a flood. All right, so game 3 here at round 14 GP Las Vegas. So obviously we don't have standings, Luis, but what would it mean winning for Austin versus winning for Trevor?
So if Trevor wins, he's got to win his last round. He'll be 12-2 if he wins this match. Win his last round, go to 13-2, and just hope his tiebreakers hold up and he makes top 8. If Austin wins, he's 13-1 and likely in the top 8, may be able to draw or could play and potentially lose, still make top 8. And of course, if he wins and then wins again, he's a lock. He would be one of the first seeds. Keldon Warcrawler, not at its best against Knight of Grace here.
No, all it wants to do is attack, but it's not today.
Well,
take it easy.
Austin is drawing the better side of his creatures this game with Knight of Grace followed by potentially Danitha Capuchin.
Oh, those are nice. Those fight side by side.
And then next turn, he can play a black creature to make that so that Knight of Grace, because it becomes a 3/2.
Yeah, so Danitha Capuchin hitting the board. Oh, this first strike is nice.
Oh.
All right. This is a good blocker. Rampaging Cyclops not too shabby.
No, and that will force Austin to find something like Jousting Lance or Eviscerate in order to get his army of 2/2s and 3/2s past that Rampaging Cyclops. I don't know if it's really rampaging if it's sitting there blocking, but it is doing a good job of that.
And I think Austin is kind of on the mono rat plan. He has another one in hand. Look at Danitha and Rats fighting side by side.
Well, now that he has the 2 rat colonies, they assemble. They combine forces. They're both 3/1s.
Look, if he gets another one, they can go through the Cyclops. Well, they can't. Oh, the Gideon's Reproach was a big game.
Yeah, the Gideon's Reproach will help Austin here, though with a 3/5 and a 4/4 on defense, it's really hard to attack with either Danica or Danitha or the Knight of Grace profitably, because Reproach can take out one thing, but the other card will kill your creature.
So congratulations and thanks to all the dads out there. Please consider taking a moment to...
All right, Danitha's going to be the only creature getting in here.
Oh man, if Trevor shoves both his big creatures in front of it, it's going to be pretty tough.
Kind of tempting to, though.
I would.
Right?
I think I'd force Austin to have 2 tricks. Look, there's no way this is disastrous. If Austin has Adamant Will plus Gideon's Reproach, sure you lose. You don't even lose both your creatures. So, I think that there's really no big downside to putting both your creatures in play.
And that's exactly what's going to happen.
This is just not going to work out well for Austin. He's now going to trade a Gideon's Reproach and a Danitha for one of Trevor's creatures. This is like one of those attacks where you just hope your opponent messes up and just blocks with one creature. Then they block with 2 and you're like,
Oh, damn.
oh wait, this is not going to work out well.
Yeah, and he's just going to have to fire this off, but it doesn't even look that good.
I would like to reiterate the earlier announcements about bribery and collusion. The only way you should determine the outcome of your match is by playing a game of Magic to its natural conclusion.
Yeah, and this is going to take care of the Spider and Danitha. But yeah, Austin had to 2-for-1 himself in that attack, and Rampaging Cyclops lives to tell the tale.
And this is, some people were saying, I could see in chat, like, oh, that was a bluff. He was bluff attacking. The problem is, when you have a bluff, you have to know what you're selling. And there's no one card that Austin could have that makes that really hugely profitable.
It would have to be 2 things, but right, Trevor was like, okay, show me your 2 tricks, right?
And at that point, it's a 2-for-2. It's not even like you're getting 2 for 1. You're trading both your creatures for both of Austin's cards. So bluffs are not as effective when your opponent just can't think of a way they're going to get destroyed, and that just did not end up working out well for Austin.
Well, sometimes also when that happens, I feel like you have to be okay if the worst case scenario happens, and if you're not, you should just not be making that bluff. So that's part of it too. So Groon, the Lonely King, is going to be hitting the red zone in. He is big.
Oh yeah, Grun is attacking currently for 10 right now, because it's the only thing attacking, and it's going to put Austin on a pretty quick clock. When this format started, I looked at Grun and I was like, okay, this is like better than Primordial Worm, but not that much better. Turns out it is that much better. The stats do matter. This is not a format where a 5/5 and a 7/6 are about the same, because there's some formats where that's true.
Yeah.
This is a format where a 10/10 is a lot better.
It also just feels like Primordial Worm is just not great. Like, that's part of it too, you know?
Certainly, and Primordial Worm is in fact not great. Wow.
Oh, this is going to help take the Cyclops, take down the Even Sentry.
Yeah. Arbor Armament is doing some work here. Not a frequently played card, but that did come out of the sideboard, and that is going to give Trevor a pretty significant advantage here.
I feel like I've boarded in this card, but it rarely works. I'd much rather just have like a Pierce the Sky.
It is a very situational card, but I guess this was the right situation.
Yeah, this Cyclops was ready to punch that bird.
For our other players,
It also gives Trevor a target for his Gitu Chronicler.
Yeah, I was looking at his graveyard right now to see if there was anything good to buy back, but I think
No, but there is an Arbor Armament.
He even gets to play at this turn if he wants.
Yeah, the face-up trick, not quite exactly what you want, but
I mean, might as well get some value, right?
Grun is now attacking for 10, and if Austin wants, can put all of his creatures in front of Grun. and take Grun down. In fact, he doesn't have to put all of them. He could put the Knight of Grace, both 3/1 rat colonies, and one of his other 2 creatures in front of Grun, and that will take Grun down. I think that might actually be a reasonable play here.
I mean, Grun is putting Austin in the abyss if he doesn't go with a shove the whole team in front of it, right?
Right, like, look, Austin just chump blocked with a Benalish Honor Guard, right? So, if you'd make that other play instead, imagine putting 2 more creatures on. It's like you're trading 2 more creatures for a Grun because you're already losing 1 creature. You'd probably trade 2 creatures for a Grun, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that Austin, the longer this goes where he's chumping one at a time, the less likely he is to be able to defeat the Grun. On the flip side, he does have Blessed Light in hand, so he knows that if he just draws a land, he can kill Grun that way. So that does make sense to wait.
Kicked Stronghold Confessor for Austin. I mean, the problem with doing that, Luis, though, is he is left with that Rampaging Cyclops, which is then going to be the biggest creature on the board, and it does look difficult to take care of it right now.
Though if he did block everything on Grun and then drew the land, he could Blessed Light the Cyclops.
Oh, that would be nice.
Because, look, we're going to see that Grun take down 3 creatures individually.
Yeah, at this point, this Grun would have just traded with something. Bloodstone Goblin is a follow-up, and a Llanowar Envoy.
Austin just sitting here like, can I just draw a 5th land? All I'm asking for is a 5th land, and no, he just draws spell after spell.
Just another Haven Sentry.
And it's funny because normally with this black-white aggressive deck, you'd be really happy if you were told, hey, you're going to draw, 4 land and all spells, and you're like, wow, that's awesome. But it turns out he's got that 1/5 mana card, the one card he's drawn that costs more than 4, and it would be really nice to be able to play it.
All right, is this the point where you want to shove with everyone?
I mean, sunk costs are real, so the fact that he could have done it earlier doesn't actually matter. You still have to evaluate it as it is right now.
That's what it'd be like. Not to double down on a mistake or anything, but like you do have to take care of this thing eventually, right?
I might be tempted just to take the damage and then hope to draw a land for Blessed Light. And if Trevor goes in with everything next turn, you Blessed Light Grun, you make some good blocks. Still in a bit of trouble. And unfortunately for Austin, Trevor drew Fight with Fire, so he's very close to being able to kick that. He's only 2 lands away. Looks like we did finally draw the land.
That is finally the light. He's considering attacking with the Haven Sentry.
He does know about that Arbor Armament, though, and if he attacks, Trevor might just be shrug, I'll just go for the same trick I did last time. You also have to factor in what happens if Trevor decides to just attack with everything, and you might be able to kill the Grun, but then your creatures are forced to block his other creatures because Austin is only at 4 life.
Yeah, Trevor does have the advantage here by having 18 life and a really commanding board position.
And the backup plan of just casting Kicked Fight with Fire. So basically Trevor feels like, and accurately so, feels like he's in a great spot because if he draws 2 land in a row, wins with Fight with Fire. If he draws all spells, probably wins with all those spells.
Trevor drawing a land for the turn. Still just getting in there with Grun. This time Austin does have the lands for the Blessed Light.
And Austin's going to line up a bunch of blocks, hoping Trevor goes for a trick. Actually, what you want to do if you can... it doesn't quite work. I was hoping he could block with exactly 10 power to give Trevor an incentive to cast Arbor Armament, and then you Blessed Light it.
Yeah, because you know about the armament.
But it doesn't quite work because you don't have a combination of creatures that can do that. So
that would be very, very nice, though. But that also is kind of obvious if you think about it, too, because he knows... Trevor knows, Austin knows about the armament.
Yeah, it is obvious, and Trevor probably wouldn't take the bite, but he would. Austin does want to just try because it's kind of free. Because Blessed Light's going to handle this no matter what.
Yeah, so the Blessed Light is going to take away this Grun, finally sending it to be alone in exile forever.
You know you want to call it one Lonely Boy. You know you wanted to every
Obviously,
single
I want
turn.
to call it Lonely Boy every turn I wanted to. It's kind of a beat to have to de-learn the nicknames that you give cards, and then you're like, yeah, Grun the Lonely King.
Well, it's gone now, so I figured I'd let you get one out of your system, but on the way out.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Call the Cavalry coming in, and this is actually going to help against this board.
Well, what Austin doesn't know is bam, the game is over.
Oh, Fight with Fire kicked.
That may be one of the cards that's ended the most games of Dominaria as the last spell in the stack, and that will do it. Trevor Goer is going to take that game, and he's going to advance to 12-2.
Fight with Fire is so good. Where would you put Fight with Fire in this draft format?
I think pick one, pack one. We had it about 6th or 7th. You know,
CFP.
yeah, comparable to Icy Manipulator. Some of the rares, like a little behind, like Lyra Dawnbringer, for example.
Well, Lyra Dawnbringer is just like busted. So
yeah,
I mean, God, that card is so great. Anyway, we have more Magic coming your way, but first we have these messages.